Um, I think I'm doing Maryada Vyatikrama by speaking in front of all you senior Matajis, but just like a parent looks upon the child and takes kindly to all the child's mistakes. So please correct me if I go wrong. And I'm indeed very fortunate to be speaking on the topic of Mother Devahuti. Even the first time when I read about Devahuti in Srimad Bhagavatam, I was nothing less than fascinated, and she continues to fascinate me more and more. She's definitely one of the most glorious and most fortunate women because she had the best father, who was one of the 12 Mahajanas, Swayambhuva Manu, who was the son of Lord Brahma. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manuhu. That same Manu who has written Manusmriti, and he's an authority on Bhakti and Dharma Shastra, is her great father. And then she married one of the great devotees and yogis who had the personal audience with the Supreme Lord himself, and got all the Lord's blessings, that is Kardama Muni. And then she went on to have the Supreme Lord Sri Hari as her own son, who came in the avatara of Kapila Deva. What more fortune a woman can have from all sides. And she herself is such an ideal personality that we are going to see every phase of her life is so much to learn. And indeed, she is blessed. Even in Bhagavad Gita, we find this verse where Krishna says, Kirti Shrirvakcha Narinam Smritir Medha Dhriti Kshamaha. So these are the 6 feminine qualities. They're especially important for women because Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that whichever woman possesses these characteristics, they are like 6 opulences, whether all the 6 or some of them, such women become glorious. Why is that? Because Kirti means fame. Undoubtedly, Devahuti is one of the most famous Vaishnavis because she's the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kapila. And whenever name of Kapila is taken, just so that we understand which Kapila we are referring to, because there came another imposter Kapila who actually propagated an atheistic philosophy in the name of Sankhya. So just to get a clarity, many a times Kapila Deva is referred to as Devahuti Kapila. So she is undoubtedly one of the most famous Vaishnavis. And Shrivak, so beautiful speech, that is also one of the ornaments of a woman. And she definitely is eulogized for that, especially the way she dealt with her husband all the time. She had such a nice personality, and she always spoke kind, sweet words to her husband. Smriti and Medha, she's definitely very, very intelligent. That also we will see going forward, how she came up with such important questions when she had the audience with Lord Kapila. And Dhriti is faithfulness. She's definitely one of the most faithful, chaste women who served her husband selflessly, faithfully. She had all faithful attitude towards her husband, and faithful in following her dharma at every phase in her life. And Kshama means patience. And we will see how patient she was when she was serving her husband. She happened to serve her husband selflessly, so much so that for a very, very long time, she didn't even have much of an interaction with the husband, what to speak of any kind of an appreciation for the selfless service she did. So she was very, very patient, and finally that patience bore fruit. So these are some of her exemplary qualities. Not just that, as a daughter, as a wife, And as a mother, she very beautifully teaches us the Stri Dharma, what we should do, how ideally we should behave in these capacities. So let's move on to hear how Devahuti, from being seemingly kind of an ordinary girl, young girl, although she's definitely not ordinary by an average calculation, because she was the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, a Rajarshi who will rule the whole earthly planet. But then, how did she choose her husband? Hearing from authorities and from parampara, it is one of the most primeval, the most important characteristic in bhakti or otherwise. Narada Muni came to her palace, and Narada Muni told her about the great qualities and spiritual elevated, how spiritually elevated Kardama Muni was, and about all his good characteristics. Based on that, she got so fixed, she fixed her mind upon him. She had never even seen him. Of course, there was no such a thing back in the day that you could meet a man, interact with them. Okay, let's talk for some time, see if we get along. What to speak of living in with a man? So such was the social scenario. And but then she had so much faith in the words of a perfect person, Narada Muni, that she immediately fixed her mind upon Kardama Muni. Of course, Narada Muni is the direct representative of the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord himself reveals later to Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni, on the other hand, was such a great personality. Upon receiving an instruction from Lord Brahma, Brahma naturally wanted to carry on his creation, and being his one of his sons, Brahma ordered Kardama Muni to get married and get progeny, because he was supposed to act as a Prajapati. So Kardama Muni took it to his heart, and then he went to the forest and meditated, did tapasya for 10,000 years just to get a suitable wife. This is unimaginable. And for a person of his stature, he could have just prayed to Mother Parvati, Uma. He could have easily gotten a very good wife, undoubtedly, because that is also prescribed in the injunctions of the Shastra. But being a very, very chaste devotee, he would not deviate from the tenets of bhakti. He would only stick akama sarvakarma va mokshakama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purushaparam. Whatever be the prayer or a request, we should always stick to worshipping the Supreme Lord Sri Vishnu. So he did that, and Vishnu was so pleased with him and informed him that he has already arranged a very, very nice girl for him. And here also, Kardama Muni wanted a girl who was of like disposition. So back in the day, there's so much emphasis on the like character of the husband and wife, or the groom and the bride in question. And on the other hand, so Kardama Muni, after he did his prayers, and Vishnu came down and blessed him. And just 2 days after that, Swayambhuva Manu came with his daughter and wife, because Swayambhuva Manu got to know about Devahuti's decision and choice. And so he brought his daughter, and he handed over his daughter to Kardama Muni. So Devahuti too duly, without taking any sort of an independent decision here, so going through the authority of the father duly handed over her to Kardama Muni. So a woman, it is said in our Shastra, can never be independent. So this is a sort of a taboo word nowadays, and it is so wrongly interpreted, and everything is actually going against women today. The so-called dependence of women is for our good. So she, just like Devahuti, because she heard from the right person about the right man, and then she went through her father. So her father duly handed over her, um, having considered all other uh, parameters. So she had the best ideal marriage. So nowadays what happens is hardly there is any consideration for, uh, even though we think we are entering into some kind of a relationship, or I mean in today's terminology, but so many broken marriages, so many unideals mismatch. Why it is all happening? It is very nicely explained here by Srila Prabhupada. Here, both Kardamamuni and Devahuti were of the same taste and same character. Both were very sincere seekers of spiritual life. And apart from that, so definitely both were very good devotees, and they both were actually yogis too. Of course, we know Kardamamuni was a Mahayogi. Not just that, Devahuti herself was very advanced in the Eightfold Yoga system. So naturally, now we can see how, and of course, their personal dispositions, everything was very, very well matched, because it was arranged by none other than the Supreme Lord himself. And we can't expect in each and every case that is the case, but even if we go by the instructions given by the Supreme Lord, we will nevertheless get some benefit. So another important thing to note here is Kardamamuni was a Brahmana, but Devahuti came from a Kshatriya background. So nowadays, so there's a lot of intercaste marriages and this and that, but which is really, anyway, the caste system is all mixed up. But back in the day also, there was a system in place, something called as Anuloma Viloma Vivaha. So intercaste was allowed. How? In a certain way. The woman has to be from a lower caste than the man. Then it was okay. But the woman could not be from a higher caste. This is only because women always take on the caste of the husband. So in the Varnashrama system, we have Chaturvaranyam Maya system, Gunakarma Vibhakashaha, based on the quality and the work, karma, that a man does. So we have Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So, but women are not exactly Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. No. If a woman is married to a Brahmana, then she is the wife of a Brahmana. She's a Brahmani. So if she's married to a Kshatriya, she becomes a Kshatrani. So it is for the advantage of the woman that she has to be married to a man of the higher caste, because culturally and spiritually she can be elevated. If she's married to someone of a lower culture and lower caste, that means her culture and spiritual elevation is only going to go down. So such was the society. Everything, the entire infrastructure and all the practices were done so that every person, every soul can get the best opportunity in their life, given their condition, to elevate themselves spiritually and get perfection. So now, I hope I'm not going too fast. My request is that if anybody has any question, you could stop me, or you can wait till the end. That's fine. When it comes to Devahuti, it's like an ocean. There's so much, and it is also said that second only to Uddhava, and the Bhagavatam, Uddhava also receives direct instruction from the Lord at length. And now even in Devahuti's case, so much that shows how important a personality she is, right from the beginning till the end, how she achieved perfection, and all the instructions she personally received from the Supreme Lord. Everything has been accounted for. And of course, given the short duration, I can try and touch upon some things. So let's see how it goes. So Malini Mataji and other, it's okay, right? My speed, my pace is okay?
Perfectly fine, Mataji. Please
Okay.
carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, as a father, Swayambhuva Manu too, just like his daughter, didn't mind that here his son-in-law, prospective son-in-law, was practically penniless. He was in the forest. He had no home, no possessions, nothing. And so even the daughter was so much agreeable, even though she came from such a royal aristocratic background, one of the richest kings of the whole world. But because they were so spiritually elevated, that is why the culture is known as the Aryan culture. Arya means they are spiritually progressive, and they don't care about these superficial or apparent considerations. Real spiritually advanced people, that means. Just we can take a contrast in today's generation. How much the father of girls, the only thing they see, they in fact go to the extent of directly asking the salary of their prospective son-in-law. They want to see if he is working abroad in the US. Some people even I've seen people going to the extent of even seeing whether he's already got a green card. I mean, it's that is why we are ending up in such pathetic social situations. And so when everything is done, keeping the Supreme Lord in mind to please him, then everything will automatically be taken care of. Sam siddhir haritoshanam. Okay, so and when Swayambhuva Manu brings over his daughter and informs Kardama Muni and requests him to accept her, Kardama Muni also makes a couple of points here, and he readily accepts Devahuti with due consideration. Of course, he knew it was the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, but still, for our benefit, Kardama Muni clarifies that. He says, of course, Devahuti is the ornament of all women, ornamented women, because she was brought along with so much jewelry and everything. That was the system to give dowry. So even the dowry system is so pathetically reversed nowadays. But the dowry was for the benefit of the girl, so that she and her husband have a good, like Kardama Muni was in the forest, so they had brought all the household paraphernalia to gift the daughter, and jewelry and clothing and everything for her benefit, and so that she and the prospective son-in-law will also benefit from that. So this was, of course, according to the capacity of the father, and it cannot be forced upon. Even a lower economic class nowadays are being harassed for that. So anyway, that's a different consideration. And so he says she was so beautiful. Devahuti was so beautiful that once when she was playing with a ball on the terrace of her palace. It seemed, Prabhupada writes that it must have been like a skyscraper, because a Gandharva who was flying on an airplane happened to see her, and he was so struck with her beauty that he actually fell off his airplane. She was so beautiful. And of course, she was playing a ball. So we may think that, oh, back in the day also women were playing all outdoor games and participating in sports and stuff. No, that was not the case. Here it is remarked that it was only for royal women, because they had that kind of a infrastructure wherein they had big palaces, they had their sakhis, so many girlfriends, and so they could afford that. It was not for everybody. So and then he said, who would not accept this ornament of a woman? And another thing is that she has never given her heart to anyone else, and I was the first one that she has considered and fixed her mind upon. So that is good news. So there is so much to learn from this. So nowadays there is so much going on about marriage and relationships, and of course in such an open environment where girls and boys mix and everything, what do we expect? That is what is going to happen when the opposite sex meet. And so they so-called fall in love, and they get attracted to so many boys, and they probably try out different boys. But the point is, at the end of the day, neither they are satisfied nor they'll ever get their ideal man that they are looking for. And anyway, it is not possible in the material world. But so Kardamamuni makes this point because Prabhupada also writes that a woman's psychology is different. So even a man, even if he has many wives, that's okay in Vedic culture, even though it's not possible or agreeable in today's day and age. But for a woman, the minute she fixes her mind upon a man, that's it. She cannot think of anybody. And that is the reason why girls were married off right at their puberty, so that the man who they live with from the beginning of their mature years, they're going to be faithful to them, and they'll always be faithful. And they grow up with the man, and conflict, or what to speak of separation. So after all this, so finally when Kardamamuni accepts her, and so the parents depart from there. So the parents depart from there, and Devahuti is alone now with Kardamamuni, and she starts serving her husband. And it is said that पितृभ्यां प्रस्थिते साध्वी पतिम इंगितको विदा नित्यं पर्यचरत प्रीत्या भवानीव भवं प्रभुम. So here it is considered, she's compared to Mother Parvati, who serves her husband Lord Shiva. Even Mother Parvati also came from a hugely affluent background. Her father was the Parvata Raja, so rich. But then she married such a simple personality as Lord Shiva. But what is his asset? His asset is that he is Narayana Parayana. He's always thinking only about the Supreme Lord Narayana. Same is the case with Kardamamuni, and that was the only consideration, apart from the characteristics and the age and the qualities, good qualities, not the grossly materialistic considerations. So she started serving her husband with so much love and ingita kovida. That means it is said that she could understand, like back in the day, women were so expert, they were trained like that from the beginning to be such an expert wife that they could understand the husband's desires just by looking at them. Just ingita kovida means expert in understanding just by sign. Not because in this case, Kardamamuni had no interaction, nothing. He didn't even go check on Devahuti. Poor Devahuti kept serving him so much, day in, day out, for a long time, years, and and then she got so much reduced in health and emaciated at the end, actually. So constantly. And another important point here is sadhvi. She is called a sadhvi. We see that this term being used over and over again. Even Lord Kapila also addresses her as sadhvi. So, who is a sadhvi? Sadhvi is the feminine gender form of sadhu. Right? We all know that sadhu is for the man and sadhvi is for the woman. But in today's day and age, we see many sadhvis with saffron robes or dishevelled hair and hugging people around, going in public, making so many disciples. There are many other organizations like that. They promote such female sadhvis, but here in Vedic culture, sadhvi is attached to chaste woman or a pativrata nari. So for the first religious principle for a woman is to serve her husband. And so that is exactly sadhvi. Even in case of Gandhari, this term is actually used. So it is not that she independently goes on to become some kind of a sadhu out in the public. No, that was not the case. So she never even went out in Devahuti. She didn't even do any other sadhana actually. Of course, because her husband also was such a topmost devotee. And so finally, and then, so there's so much more description of how exactly she served. Vishrambhenatma shauchena gauravena damena cha chushrushaya sauhridena vacha madhuraya cha bhoh. Vishrambhena, with intimacy, and gauravena. These two are very important, and the relationship with the husband and wife. Husband is the intimate friend. At the same time, he takes on a superior position. It's just that is the way man's psychophysical nature is designed and women's psychophysical nature is designed. So it is so difficult to just get this point across, or even to myself actually, because having grown up in this kind of an opposite culture that is propagated everywhere, that men are women are equal. These are all artificial equality. One doesn't have to be equal. One can be glorious just by their own constitutional nature. That we will see how Devahuti, being a woman, practicing her Sri Dharma and Bhagavata Dharma, how she became perfect with the self same female body. It's not that she had to change body to become a man. Even that is not correct. So the thing is, even though husband and wife, they may be equal in the sense that here in this case, both were of the same nature. She was also advanced in yoga. She was not like some inferior personality or anything, but still there is always that cognition, that acknowledgement that okay, the husband is a superior to the woman, even by the nature and the bodily characteristics. It is quite natural actually. If we have the eyes to see it, and through the eyes of the Shastra, we can understand women, the very nature, by nature, we want to be dependent, we want to be protected, we want to be cared for and nurtured for, whereas the man wants to take charge. He wants to be the controller, he wants to be the superior personality, and women have to give room for that, not to compete. Oh, I'm also equal to you, I'm also in every way just as good as you are. No, that is not, that shouldn't be the case. Why, we will see. So she served with intimacy and great respect, with control of senses, damena, and with great service and love, and with sweet words. And of course, I'm let me keep putting the disclaimer that I'm in no way qualified to speak all this, because I myself, not that I'm able to practice all this. So it's for my own purification. I'm also trying to understand. So So the intimacy should not, Prabhupada writes, it should not be in the case wherein familiarity breeds contempt. But so wife, because a husband, he usually works outside and comes home, usually he's agitated by so many opposing elements outside. He has to make a living, it's not easy, and then he comes home. But the wife should receive the husband well and treat him well, make him feel good, and then he feels at home. If she also becomes very agitated and uh, irritable, then it becomes a very unhappy atmosphere. So of course, this we're all talking about what women should do. Of course, there is what man should do as well is coming up. So that way she knew, and for one thing, she knew how powerful her husband was, and in fact she treated him more than providence, more than even Vidhata, Brahma, because he was a very dear devotee of the Lord, and for a perfectly pure devotee of the Lord, and nothing is impossible. She knew that. And Visrujya kamam dambham cha dvesham lobham agham madam apramatta yata nityam teji yamsam atoshayat. Even though she came from a very, very affluent and background and prestigious family, basically. In fact, Kardama Muni, when was being handed over, Swayambhuva Manu also tells she is the sister of Uttanapada and Priyavrata. Such was the the lineage that she was coming from. Still, she gave up any kind of a pride. So this has to be there. We should a wife should never have that pride that, oh, I'm coming from such a great family. My husband, he's not so great, his lineage or whatever, so I come from a better background, or my abilities are better. So that should not be there. Once that comes in, then everything will be a mess. So giving up envy. So envy also, woman should never be envious of her husband. So not if a husband is appreciated for something, she should feel happy actually, and she should always see to it that her husband is glorified, not that, oh, I have to be glorified more than him. That should not be the case. So so all these qualities are the perfect qualities of a pativrata, chaste woman. So she finally won the heart of her husband. So much humility and constant loving service, and so much that she completely neglected her own body. In fact, it is said that she had not even combed her hair for so long that it had become matted and completely entangled. So, and one could ask why didn't she dress up well? Actually, women in ordinary situations, there is nothing wrong if they dress up well, and they can dress up well for the pleasure of the husband. But in this case, the husband himself was so renowned, so she didn't even wear all the jewelry she got from her parents and all that. So one fine day, Kardama Muni finally took notice of how much emaciated she had become, and he had not even noticed her properly for so long. When she was married to him, she was so beautiful and full of luster actually. But now she had reduced to this condition, and then he says to her, oh my, you are usually all conditioned souls are so attached to their body is very dear to them, but you didn't even care for your own body, and you have, at the cost of your own health, you have served me selflessly. He spoke with so much love and compassion that his voice was like choked. So Gadgada, in Gadgada voice he spoke, and then he says, I'll give you all the blessings that I received from the Supreme Lord. That means the love of God. But she could have immediately taken that, but she didn't even want to hear that. So, but she goes on to say three things. She asks, my dear husband, please, first of all, you had promised me at the time of their marriage. Kardamamuni makes a promise that I'm going to be with her until the time she gets a child from me, until the time she conceives. And so Devahuti wanted to remind him about that. So she felt a little shy. So she was still a little shy. So look at this quality of shyness, which is also an ornament of the woman. But of course, in this day and age, being shy is considered the opposite. It is not looked upon very nicely. People are uh, pushed to be outspoken and bold and give up all their shyness, especially for women. But even Prabhupada remarks that shyness is actually the ornament of a woman. So she was actually shy even to speak to her own husband. Of course, she didn't have interaction at all with him for a long time, and she directly asked for um, physical relationship with him because she wanted a child from him. And then secondly, she asked for a proper house, and then she asks for her health, um, you know, to do something so that her health is improved. Because she was scared that Kardama Muni may not even feel attracted to her because she was so thin and reduced. So, and immediately at the mention of this, Kardama Muni manifests a huge aerial mansion that could satisfy any kind of desire. Everything. It was like a aerial city with so many palaces and pools and whatnot. So opulent, studded with jewels and gold, and this is called as divya. This word divya is used not in the sense that the jewels or the gold that was used, that was available in the higher planets. And not even that. In fact, it is said that even the gold that is available in Indraloka or in the higher planets, that gold is so much more superior to the gold we have here. We think gold is the best metal, but then even the gold we have here is much inferior compared to what is available in the heavenly planets. But here, what Kardama Muni created was not available even for the devatas. It was of that quality. So, and then he made then he manifested. So he later asked Devahuti to dive into Bindu Sarovara and then take a dip. And so she had asava, and she regained back her health. So anyway, they enjoyed for a long time, going throughout the universe. And finally, they had 9 daughters. 9 daughters. And then immediately, because she conceived, so Kardama Muni was so detached, immediately he wanted to leave. But then she reminds him that, oh, but these daughters will get married and go away. What will happen to me? So you need to give me a son to take care of me, who can make me fearless. And then Kardama Muni tells her about the benediction he had received from the Lord Vishnu, that he himself is going to come as the son of Devahuti. So at this point, Devahuti lamented so much that, oh, look at me. I have been with the most elevated devotee all this while, but all I could do is sense gratification with him. How stupid I am. So she remorse, she laments that way. This could happen to us too, or I think it happens to me all the time. Even though we may be in devotee association, married to devotee, but we end up, I end up most of the time, I think, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm still doing the same things that I probably could have done without being in devotee association. So that is our loss. So that is when she says, no, I need to do Bhagavata Dharma. So, and then finally, as instructed by her husband, she does lot of tapasya and puja, and then finally she gets Lord Kapila as her son. So, oh, my voice is breaking. Everyone can hear me otherwise, or? Okay, so now I'll quickly brush upon little of what Devahuti had received. What did she receive from Kapila Deva? It's really too vast for lack of time. I have to touch upon it. So, first of all, she approaches Lord Kapila when her husband leaves home. So now here is a complete picture of a full circle of a woman's life. First, she was protected by her father, then duly protected by the husband, and now when the husband leaves home for sannyas, she is protected nicely by her uh, son, not just materially. He actually gives her the highest type of protection. That is what is a putra is supposed to do. He has to elevate the mother spiritually. So another thing to note that is so many similarities between a wife and a disciple. She acted as a perfect wife and a perfect disciple at the same time. So duly served the husband with all humility, and now she's going to do more. She's going to inquire. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Finally, she's inquiring now. So she asks Kapilideva, she tells him that, my dear Lord, I'm completely disgusted with this sense enjoyment. My so much that my senses continually disturb me. Now, this is a very, very major point here. As I mentioned, the kind of sense gratification was not we can even imagine. For us, sense gratification is like all day of toil and hard work, maybe little bit of happiness or pleasure we get, but for her nothing. She has 1,000 Gandharvika girls serving her. They didn't have to endeavor for anything. The whole aerial mansion was self-sufficient. It could give you anything, any wish, whatever you want. It took them to all over the universe, the pleasure groves of Meru Parvata and whatnot. So such a kind of the highest sense gratification also, in spite of that, she laments that she is disgusted. That means these indriyas, these senses, can never be satisfied. The more we try to satisfy them, the more they come back with vengeance. They're only demanding. And so she came to a point of being disgusted, which is a great fortune and which is very rare. It is said that it's not easy to, so that is why pravritti marga, they say, is not recommended. It is dangerous. One may think that, oh, I'll enjoy my life now, and in old age I'll give up everything. That's really not going to happen, because we see in our daily life, do old people naturally become renounced, naturally become detached and knowledgeable? That never happens, because it is said these senses become contaminated, dushita. So once they become contaminated with the gratification of material sense gratification, they make the soul more and more ignorant. It covers the soul with ignorance. So finally now she says, I'm sick of this disturbing senses, and I've fallen into the state of ignorance. This is such humility. How can the mother of the Supreme Lord have fallen into the state of ignorance? There is only her great humility, and she's also representing us jivas, hopeless jivas, and talking. So now, so she asks the Lord, please dispel my entanglement and great delusion this false ego is causing about I, me, and mine, and all that. And she also asks, please tell me about Prakriti and Purusha. What is the relationship between spirit, matter, everything? So Lord Kapila explains that the best of all yogas, because she's a yogi, they say the best of all yogas is that which brings us finally to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. If the yoga doesn't do that, what is the use? And that is possible only when we engage in bhakti. One could be any kind of a yogi, but if he doesn't take to bhakti, then he can never attain perfection. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenam taratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. It's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita also. Then now he says, no, but then how do you become a devotee? You can become a devotee only by the help of other devotees, sadhu sangha. So who is a sadhu? He also gives symptoms. He explains that titikshava karunikaha suhrida sarvadehinam ajata shatrava shanta sadhava sadhubhushanaha. So these are the qualities. They are humble, they're tolerant, they're very compassionate sadhus. Ajata shatrava, they have no enmity with anyone. They're always shanta, peaceful. But then this is not the primary symptom actually. These are secondary. Our acharyas say, what is the primary symptom? Primary symptom is that madchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. They're always chanting my glories. Nothing other than Krishna Katha and Krishna Nama is dancing on their tongue. The same thing is said here too. In fact, this is one of my most favorite verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Here the Supreme Lord is saying, Tatam prasangat mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarana rasayana katha tajoshanat asu apavargavatmani shraddharathir bhaktir anukramishyati. He's saying, what do devotees do when they come together? They chant my glories, they discuss about my great glories. And what happens then? There are two things that happen. One is immediate effect. It is not like bhakti is not like, okay, you have to do all your tapasya, hard tapasya, and I have to toil for this, I have to forget all my pleasures and comforts. Finally, then, maybe I'll get some realization, like the yogis and Brahmavadis who do so much tapasya. It is not like that. Bhakti from the very beginning is full of rasa, it is full of pleasure. Here he says, instantly when we do this, engage ourselves in Krishna Katha and Krishna Nama, we have all seen this, we have all experienced this. What happens? Hritkarana rasayana katha. Both our heart and the ears are so, they experience the nectar of Krishna Katha. And then this is immediate effect. What happens in the long term? Shraddha raktir bhaktir anukramishati. So Shraddha comes, faith. Only when in the association of devotees, when we discuss Krishna Katha and when we talk about the finer subtle points, even when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, because different devotees can have different realizations. When we talk with each other, what comes out is that our own conviction becomes very strong, our faith becomes very strong, Shraddha, Rati, and our attachment definitely to the Supreme Lord increases manifold. And Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishati, Bhakti, all these will follow. And finally, we get Bhakti, and not the sadhana Bhakti. So our acharyas have specified it is that para Bhakti, the final goal, the sadhya Bhakti, or the love of God. So now Devahuti asks the Supreme Lord, the Sankhya Yoga is very difficult. It's very analytical in nature and all that. So it may be difficult, it is especially for a less intelligent woman like me. What do I do? Please explain it in such a way that I also understand. So this should not be taken in a wrong sense that, oh, this is a gender discrimination and all that. So yes, everything comes with a baggage. So we are endowed with a female body, and there are pros and cons like anything else. So the cons is, yes, women are usually in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. That's why they're considered less intelligent and not so predisposed to understand Tattva Gnana. But that's okay. That is why women are not allowed to take part in some of the ritualistic ceremonies and all that. But for bhakti, nobody is exempt. Mam he parthave pashritya yepishu papayonaya striyo vaishyas tatha shudra tepi yanti param gatim. Krishna says this. Whoever be, let it be women, let it be Shudra, they're all welcome. Everybody can do bhakti. In fact, bhakti is the highest of all processes. That is the nature. Just like Hare Krishna Mahamantra that we chant is the highest of all mantras. But then it is available to everybody. Nobody, there is no restriction like the Gayatri Mantra, no restriction. Similarly, bhakti also. And one thing is that being a woman, this is something I feel, and I think, and all the acharyas have also said in different instances, that being women is actually can be an advantage in bhakti, because what is how do you approach the Lord in bhakti? What is being a woman means, like I already said, to be a woman means to be dependent, right? So we naturally have that sense of dependency, sense of want to be protected. And as a Jivatma is also Prakriti or feminine, and Bhakti is feminine. So it really goes, these two go really well with each other. So being Jivatmas and having this female body, it can actually work in our favor. That for men, it is not easy to pour their heart out and cry to the Lord, but women can easily do that. So in that way, we should take advantage of this situation of being a woman and pour our heart out to the Lord, especially to our Patita Pavana Jagannath, and cry for his mercy. That is the only way we can get his mercy. All right, I think I'll end here. I couldn't cover much of the teachings of Kapila Deva, but I think we got a pretty good sense of what Devahuti. Anybody has any questions? Hare Krishna.
Mataji's,
Yes.
any questions we can please ask. We have 5 minutes.
If not, I can quickly summarize how she attained perfection in 2 minutes. If that's okay.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So she went on. She had a very, very detailed conversation about bhakti, and Sankhya Yoga basically is a combination of bhakti and analyzing all the material elements to finally arrive to become conscious of the Supreme Lord. And she also finally concludes, after hearing everything, she says, one who is chanting the holy name of the Lord, there is nobody compared, nobody as fortunate as that. So that way we are very fortunate to have stumbled upon this Hare Krishna movement, which is all about chanting. So finally, Lord Kapila also leaves home after enlightening his mother, and she duly practices whatever she heard from him. She has 3 times a bath. She practices all austerities and gives up all attachment, and completely engrossed in meditation, in trance of thinking about the Supreme Lord. She becomes liberated. And in fact, all the elements of her body flow down as a river. So it is said that this river is one of the most purest rivers because she attained Siddhi. And the place where she attained Siddhi, in the very house that Kardama Muni had constructed, that is also called as the Siddhapada. So such is the glorious, glorious life of Mother Devahuti. So I'd just like to end here. Please let me know.
We have a question, Mataji.
Okay.
This is Radhya Nandini Mataji. Hare Krishna. Wonderful class, Mataji. How we can guide today's generation to follow Devahuti's steps in a simple way?
How we can guide? Yes, we can. In many ways, we can give practical examples. In fact, Lord Kapila gives a graphic picture of what happens of those who follow blindly the path of sense gratification. Because our senses are uncontrolled, we have all these problems in today's world because there is no training either for boys or girls to control their senses. Nate vidu swarthagatim hi Vishnu durasaya ye bahirarthamanina. That's what they do not know what their self-interest is. Fine, let them not agree instantly to bhakti, but at least let them come to an understanding that just blindfold sense gratification is actually going to go get them to hell. So even if not hellish, but they can see how marriages are being broken only because the woman doesn't want to be submissive to the man. So actually, even there are modern people also. I heard about this author, American author. I think her name. There's a book called Fascinating Womanhood. Even there are non-devotees, Westerners, even they have a sense of this whole feminism is so wrong. It's because women are just defeated because they have to take care of the home, they have to take care of their career. It's they're only getting cheated. So there are many ways we can actually show them that this is for their benefit. So don't get cheated, but rather take the words of the Supreme Lord and his instructions, and so we can try to bring them in that way by bringing them in Krishna conscious devotee association. I hope I answered your question, Mataji.